Jack Shabrowski here. Let's talk today about competitive synergy. It's one of the approaches to dealing with the competitors in any given situation. The concept of competitive synergy is relatively simple. It is getting the competition to work with you or getting the competition to work for you, even if they don't want to. So this is not an idea of necessarily striking up a a a partnership with a competitor. This is also figuring out how to make the competitor work for you even if they don't want to. And this is really all about looking at the competition as potentially creating opportunities for you and not problems. And this doesn't work in every conceivable situation, but there are lots of situations where the competition is potentially helpful rather than always seeing the competition as the enemy. And even if they are the enemy, one of the things that you can do if you think about things from a competitive synergy perspective is still get them to work for you. And we're going to discuss that today. All right, competitive synergy is all about thinking of the competition from a positive rather than negative perspective. There have been books written about this and the concept of things like co-opetition, where you try to convince your competition to work together with you. There are laws against some of that in terms of collusion and other things, but it's also thinking about the competition as doing things that in the long run will help you. So another version of this, of course, is marketing judo. So, so judo is a martial art that emphasizes the use of quick movements and leverage to throw an opponent. Its techniques are generally intended to turn the opponent's force towards you to your own advantage, rather than stopping and opposing it directly. That is, using your opponent's force to help throw your opponent rather than a martial art like karate, which would focus on stopping them. So marketing judo refers to marketing strategies that emphasize marketing tactics to turn the opponent's force into an advantage for your firm rather than simply opposing it directly and working against them. Some examples. So things like making gravity work for you. There are a number of examples of having gravity help you to do something, right? For instance, using a lever and a fulcrum, and then having gravity help you to lift something up. Uh, uh, there are a number of these other things. An example of this is when a space shuttle or a space vehicle wants to go to the moon, they don't just take off from Cape Canaveral or wherever they're taking off from and fly directly to the moon. The first thing that they do is they get into orbit around the world and the Earth. And then as they go around and around, they start creating elliptical orbits. And then eventually what happens is when they get to the far side of the elliptical orbit, and then when they come back towards the Earth is pulling them faster to make them speed up. And then they use that as part of the force to break free from the Earth's gravity to allow them to work their way to someplace like the moon. NASCAR drafting is the same thing. You know that when you see these stock cars on TV, one gets right behind the other, and of course the idea behind getting right behind the other is the one behind you helps create a drafting effect that allows the first car to go faster, but it also allows the second car to go faster. And the faster the first car goes, the more the effect on allowing the second car to go faster and eventually pass the first car. And so in NASCAR, that's called drafting. And the faster you go to try to get away from the person right behind you, the more suction it creates, and the more the drafting effect takes place, and the more likely it is that that person will be able to pass you. Another example is retailing pull, like the auto mall. Think about how the auto malls work. We have an auto mall here in Henderson, Nevada. It's just sold, I think the auto mall just sold its 1 millionth car. That's a lot of cars to be sold, by the way. And the way the auto mall works is all the auto dealers end up in one place. And the benefit of all the auto companies having a dealership at the auto mall is that you get lots of traffic, because when people go to look for cars, they inherently go to the auto mall and they will drive past your dealership to get to the dealership that they may have wanted to go to in the first place. And the idea is that they're already out there looking at cars. They're interested in buying a car. They drive past your dealership. All you have to do is figure out a way to get them from the street into your dealership to take a look at your vehicles. The benefit of this is that then all of the auto dealers are really working together to create some primary demand, and to create this retailing magnet for auto shoppers. And then the idea is each individual dealership has to take advantage of that situation. Another example is the famous Python squeeze or anaconda squeeze. When you have a thing like a python with an animal, the python of course, wraps itself around its prey, and it squeezes the prey, and then every single time the prey takes a breath or moves, it helps the python to squeeze even tighter. So the more you move, the faster the python is able to squeeze. And of course, so the python squeeze is something that takes advantage of the competition's actions. Another example, of course, is using the competition to help you prospect for customers. My favorite story is the Mirage and Sands Hotel. When the Mirage was first built in 1989, late 89 or early 1990, and it got ready to open, I had been talking to some of the executives at the Sands Hotel, and I told and of course they were deathly afraid of this brand new 3,000 room, brand new, spanking new hotel opening up across the street from them and taking all of their business away from the Sands and over to the Mirage. And we were talking about it, and they were trying to figure out a way to stop that from happening. And and I said to them, I think you're looking at this incorrectly. I think you need to look at this from a competitive synergy perspective. Don't look at the Mirage as someone that's going to come in and try to steal your customers. Look at the Mirage as an opportunity. So, what is the Mirage going to do for you? Well, Steve Wynn, when he got ready to open that Mirage, it was built on junk bonds. And so he came out in a press conference about a month before they opened and said, listen, I'm all in. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to fill this hotel up with gamblers. And so no matter what anybody else tries to do to stop me, I'm going to make sure that this hotel is full of gamblers every single day. 3,000 rooms worth of gamblers. And I said to the people at the Sands Hotel, I said, you don't really make any money on the rooms. The whole idea about having people staying at the Sands Hotel and casino is the casino. So it doesn't really make any difference if they're staying at your hotel or if they're staying across the street at the Mirage. The only thing you have to do is figure out how to get them to walk out of that hotel and across the street to your casino. So you ought to be thanking the Mirage, because what are they doing? They're bringing 3,000 customers that would not be there if the Mirage wasn't built. They would not be right there, right across the street from you. And all you have to do is figure out a way to get them to come across the street. And I suggested to them that I had a pretty good idea for that. And they said, well, what's the idea? And I told them that I would give them the idea for $1 million. And they said that that was ridiculous, and they weren't going to pay for that. And I said, well, that's okay. I said, I think you guys can figure out yourself, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. But it all boils down to looking at the mirage as an opportunity, not a threat. Because all you have to do is create a reason for those people to walk across the street. Now, the people that were staying at the Sands, they had a good reason to walk across the street to the Mirage. First off, it was a brand new hotel, and they had white tigers in the lobby, and they had a volcano that went off all night long out in front. And so they had a number of gimmicks to get people onto their property. But the Sands needed, of course, a reason for those people to walk across the street. They never really came up with one. Eventually, of course, the Sands Corporation shut the Sands down, and eventually the Venetian and the Palazzo were replaced it on that particular piece of property. Think about some other examples. There might be joint ventures, partnerships, co-op advertising. All those things are examples of companies working together. In many of those cases, the companies have agreed to work together. But I'm telling you that you can do competitive synergy even when the competition doesn't want to work with you. So if you're looking for competitive synergy, look at situations where the competition helps you, even though that is not their intention. Some other examples: restaurant rows. Uh, you know, um, other examples include situations where the competition creates interest and a market, and all you have to do is wade in. You remember 5 or 6 or 7 years ago when everybody decided that they were going to have a chicken sandwich, and they all bragged that they had the best chicken sandwich. And of course, the chicken restaurants like Popeyes and Chick-fil-A and uh, and um, KFC and places like that, they all saw this as a real threat. Now everybody is going to have a chicken sandwich, and they're all bragging that theirs is the best. Well, so they started this, so it became a sort of an online contest to see who had the best chicken sandwich. And it turns out that in the long run, that helped Popeyes. It didn't hurt Popeyes because they had a great chicken sandwich that they sold for $5 and was worth probably twice that amount of money. And it brought interest and new customers into Popeyes restaurants and helped their overall marketing. So when they looked at this new interest in chicken sandwiches that was brought on by other people, they looked at this as an advantage for them to get more people to come into their restaurants and try their chicken sandwich. Just another example of how to use competitive synergy to grow your business and to be successful in a highly competitive environment.